Welcome to Bot City. I'm Jet West, broadcasting from the 50-something floor in Tokyo. And today we're cracking open the biggest open weight model anyone on Earth has ever shipped. Moonshot AI's Kimi K3. 2.8 trillion parameters, 16 experts awake at a time, and a benchmark story that looks very different depending on who's running the test. Moonshot AI just shipped 2.8 trillion parameters and lights up 16 of them per query. The other 880 experts sit dark until the router decides your specific question needs them. That is not a rounding error. That is the entire design philosophy of the largest open model anyone on Earth has ever built. And it is a direct answer to a problem America handed them. You cannot buy the best chips, so you engineer your way around the cost of dense compute. Kimi K3, Beijing startup, founded a few years back by a Tsinghua grad named Yang Jilin, funded by Alibaba and Tencent, and now sitting on the biggest open weight release in the field, 2.8 trillion total. For scale, DeepSeek's V4 Pro is 1.6. Jipu's GLM5 series tops out around 744 billion. K3 is roughly double the largest thing its own countrymen have put out. And on July 27th, the full weights go up for download. Anyone. No API key, no gatekeeper, no permission slip. Now there's a number in Moonshot's press release that sounds like a coronation, and a number in the one independent benchmark that says fourth place. We'll get to which one China actually cares about, but first, the engineering. Because the engineering is real and it deserves to be said plainly. 16 of 896 experts firing per token. That is one of the most aggressive sparsity ratios ever shipped in an open model. Mixture of experts is not new. The idea that you store enormous knowledge in the total parameter count while only running a thin slice of it per query. What's new is how far Moonshot pushed the ratio and what they built to keep quality from falling off a cliff when you route that hard. Two techniques, both original to them. Kimi delta attention and something they call attention residuals. Moonshot credits both for holding reasoning quality together while the compute per query stays cheap. And that is the whole game when you're cut off from top-tier NVIDIA silicon. You cannot outspend OpenAI on hardware, so you get clever about how many neurons you actually wake up when someone asks you a question. Pair that with a 1 million token context window, native text and image input, and here's the part the US lab should be reading twice. The API speaks OpenAI's own SDK. If you are a developer already building on OpenAI or Anthropic, your switching cost to try Kimi K3 is close to zero. You change an endpoint. That's it. Priced at $3 per million input tokens, 15 per million output. That's the highest price of any Chinese lab, and I'll come back to why the high price is the point, not the problem. So that's the impressive half. Here's the half the headline skipped. Moonshot's launch materials say K3 consistently outperforms GPT-5, 5 and Claude Opus 4, 8. They claim wins over Claude Fable 5 and GPT-5, 6. Sole on select benchmarks. They point to an internal thing they named Front-End Code Arena, where K3 scored 1,679, beating Fable 5. Program Bench, SWE Marathon, more wins. Sounds like dominance. Then you go find the one number Moonshot didn't generate themselves. Artificial analysis runs an intelligence index. It's a composite of reasoning, knowledge, and task benchmarks. And it's the closest thing this industry has to a neutral cross-lab yardstick. Their score for K3, 57. Their ranking, 4th out of 189 models, behind Claude Fable 5 and behind 2 different configurations of GPT-5. 6 Saw, same press week. One company saying it beats the field, one independent scorer saying it's the 4th best thing on the board. And here's the tell nobody saying out loud. Every one of those splashy coding wins, the front end arena, program bench, SWE marathon, is self-reported. They have not been independently reproduced on a common testing harness. The one number that came from outside the building put them in 4th. The rest came from inside the building and put them 1st. I'll let you decide which methodology you trust. I want to be careful here because those competitor names, Fable 5, GPT-5, 6 Saw, GPT-5, show up only in this reporting. Treat them as source reported. The load-bearing fact isn't which specific model beat K3. It's that Moonshot's own admission in their own materials is that overall performance still trails the most powerful proprietary models. They said that. In the same breath as Open Frontier Intelligence. A company that beats everyone does not quietly concede it trails the leaders. That's not marketing. That's a confession wearing a marketing outfit. And this is where the world's largest stuns the AI world coverage does everyone a disservice. Because it takes the 2.8 trillion and treats it like a capability score. It is not. With 16 of 896 experts active, the effective compute answering your actual question is a small fraction of that headline number. The 2.8 trillion is storage. The 16 is thinking. Conflating the two is how you get a press cycle that calls a 4th place model a champion. There are 2 things missing from the coverage that matter more than the leaderboard. The first, what hardware trained this thing? The entire narrative is China works around US compute limits. Beautiful story. Not one source names the chips or the cluster. And that is the whole question. That is whether export controls are working or theater. Everyone repeats the framing and nobody produces the receipt. The second, on July 27th, full open weights of a frontier scale model go public, and I cannot find a single line about safety. Open weights means anyone can fine-tune away any guardrail. No mention of red teaming, no mention of misuse, no mention of what happens when the alignment layer becomes optional the moment the file hits your hard drive. That's not a knock on open weights as a philosophy. It's just conspicuous that a release this size arrives with zero conversation about the part that concerns people. So why the high price? Why is the most expensive Chinese API also the strategy? Because Moonshot is not chasing your monthly subscription. After DeepSeek's R1 tore through the market, Kimi fell from 3rd to 7th in the consumer chatbot race. They are not winning that fight. So they changed the fight. Give the weights away, ship an API that speaks OpenAI's language, and go capture the one thing that actually compounds: developer mind share. When your model becomes the default an engineer reaches for, you set the standard. The $3 is for the enterprise that wants a hosted endpoint. The free weights are for everyone who builds the future on top of them. That's not a consumer product. That's a land grab for the developer base of the American Frontier Labs, executed one day before Xi Jinping walked on stage in Shanghai to keynote the country's AI conference. The timing is not a coincidence. Nothing about this launch is a coincidence. So which number does China actually care about? Not the 57, not the fourth place. Those are the numbers the US labs will wave around, and they're right to. Moonshot cares about the one they didn't print in the benchmark chart. It's the download count on July 27th, and it's the number of developers who wake up 880 dark experts on a model that costs Beijing a fraction of what a dense frontier model costs to run. Fourth place on a leaderboard nobody outside the industry reads. First place in the only race that sets the standard everyone builds on next. Moonshot didn't ship the best model this week. They shipped the cheapest way to be almost the best. And then they gave it away. That's not a retreat from a losing position. That's someone who read the board and decided to flip it. Thanks for riding this one out with me. I'm Jet West. This is Bot City. Back in your feed tomorrow.
Grab News. Thomas.